Well, all right. Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for joining. Again, my name is Stephen Smith. I'm the executive director of the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. I apologize for my being on the move here, so I'm in a hotel room and backlit. So I apologize for the visuals, but I'm really excited to share a move that SACE has been looking at for a little while, and we're starting to lean into a lot more. As many of you know, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy has been a huge proponent of solar energy since our very inception. And we've really gone to bat in very big ways over the years to try to make sure that all segments of the solar market are moving forward and hitting on all cylinders. And so we view those segments in a very broad brush sense as being, we support the large scale utility solar deployment because that's where you're going to get the gigawatt, 1,000 megawatt plus types of deployment that really going to move the needle on the overall energy production and help us lower and carbon emissions and move away from fossil fuels. We're very supportive of community solar and the various aspects that can be done within communities to try to apply that and do it maybe on a smaller scale, but open it up to people who may not have opportunities to put it on their homes or their businesses. And then we are very supportive of customer-owned solar, which historically has been largely a lot of, smaller systems have done rooftop, but have been put on by large or companies, small companies and large companies that are out there in the market that are moving to help customer-owned solar be put on the grid. And there's been, we had a, we can talk about net metering, we can talk about all kinds of different ways that utilities have and customers have interacted with utilities in having a relationship where they are actually generating power as opposed to just receiving power through the grid. This niche market, which has been a niche market, but I think is on the verge of really taking off in a much bigger way, is has been historically called balcony solar, plug and play solar, plug-in solar. Even at one point I think some people refer to it as guerrilla solar, and stuff like that. So this has been around for a while, and in many ways, and we saw Germany lead. Back when they first introduced feed-in tariffs, which really helped stimulate the market in Germany and Europe, and then it caught on and helped a lot of the solar manufacturers get to scale. And then they were very key in driving down the cost overall for solar panel production and deployment. They have again sort of led the way on this balcony solar concept because Germany, a number of folks in Germany started literally getting a solar panel and a micro inverter and in essence just plugging it into their wall in Germany and having the solar panels effectively offset some of their electric power use. And that's really what this is all about. It's about customers having the ability without having to hire a firm and a super sophisticated bunch of folks wanting to do small scale stuff. Now, this can be anywhere from, 200, 400 watts, 800 watts. Those are the type of frames that, it can go up to a kilowatt or more, 2 kilowatts, but you start running into some problems if you overload the circuits, if you go too far. But if you plug it in a smart way, you make sure that it's not backfeeding onto the grid. It's just like plugging in your refrigerator or an appliance in some ways, in the sense that you have a right to do that. Now, the utilities don't always agree with that, and there's been a lot of discussion. But in Germany, so many people were doing it and doing it successfully. It is estimated that there may be as much as 4 gigawatts of balcony solar out there. I think they've identified at least approaching a gigawatt where people have self-identified, but it's happening on a much, much larger scale. So what's happening now is that this concept has been around in the United States, but it's really starting to pick up a lot of momentum. And the US grid and the European grid, there are differences. So I don't want to equate that they're all perfectly the same. The US utilities seem to be a little more resistant to this concept. But there are examples where citizens have been working with the utilities, and utilities are beginning to approve this on an increasing scale. Interestingly, the state of Utah actually passed the state law that allows a customer up to 1.2 kilowatts, that's 1,200 watts. They can plug and play if they are using the a certified UL certified system, and they have certain provisions tied into that. They are allowed to do that, and the utilities are required to let them do that. That law was just passed in the past few months, and so this is a huge breakthrough, and we're seeing some other things. So SACE is taking a very hard look at this. Our staff are beginning to play around with this. We are going to be deploying some of this. Some of us already have rooftop solar and stuff, but we're also going to begin to play around with some of the systems. We want to get real direct hands-on experience with it so that we can be first person real communicators to people about how it works and what to be aware of and what not to be aware of. We are also interested in reaching out, and part of the reason we're bringing it up on this call, because many of you in the clean energy generation working with us are looking for things to do. And so we're interested in potentially partnering with you if you're interested in this and exploring how this technology may actually be beneficial to you. We're putting our toe in the water. We're going to ease into this. We're going to learn quite a bit, and then we're going to move on. So one of the things that we identified from doing some due diligence is there's a company called Craftstrom who is a leader in this space. They have been making the panels, the microinverters, and a lot of the system electronics that actually dramatically increase the safety and make their particular configuration um, both safe for the homeowner and also, I think, more acceptable to some of the utility partners because of their very rigorous approach to how they're preventing backfeeding and how they set up systems that can monitor the circuits in such a way that it doesn't cause problems. So we've invited Ken Hutchings on, and I want to introduce Ken, and I'm going to give him a few minutes to talk a little bit about Craftstrom and what they do. Uh, Ken is one of the owners and serves as the head of business development at Craftstrom. And Craftstrom is a US-based company pioneering in plug-in solar and modular battery technology. He focuses on building partnerships, driving market adoption, and helping expand access to safe, compliant, distributed energy solutions across the US. And during his tenure at Craftstrom has become a pioneer in safe, compliant, user-friendly solar technology to help homeowners and renters access renewable energy. And let me turn it over to Ken. Ken, you want to pull yourself up there? And uh,
Yep, I'm here.
here we go. It's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. And you took some of what I was going to say, but you did a great job with it. So Craftstroom is, I'll just start in with Craftstroom, the company, and then what we're looking at or what we see coming down in the next few years. Craftstroom was founded by two brothers, an electrical engineer and an industrial designer. And they started around 2017. They're from Austria, and they were one of the four companies that brought the balcony solar into Germany. And so they started with that work in Germany and Austria, and then they started looking at the US market 2 years later. They knew there were problems with our grid and how, like, Germany is built to allow backfeeding. Their whole electrical systems are designed to backfeed, and they also don't put as much power back into the grid or use as much power as we do. So when they when they when they came into the US, they designed a product that would be legal in all 50 states and that the utility companies wouldn't have a problem with. And that's been the biggest thing for us, is especially with the Utah law passed, people think that you can only do this in Utah. Well, we can, we can do this in all 50 states. The utilities like working with us. We don't have a problem. Like, we're already working with the Tennessee Valley was it authority, right? And I'm not doing that, but that the other guys in the company are doing that, and like PG&E in California doesn't have a problem with us, so they like our system. Utah, Rocky Mountain Utility or Rocky Mountain Power, they like our system, so we already are seeing adoption by the utility companies. We have we offer just a modular plug and play solar kits, and they just plug into an outlet. So there's no permitting, no interconnection agreements, no hassle. They're totally compliant. They're UL and NEC compliant, and so that's why the companies don't have a problem. And even the law in Utah says you have to be the product that you plug in has to be UL and NEC certified. So that gives us a huge advantage in the marketplace right now. Um, and renters use this, and small businesses, homeowners. It's cool because you can take it with you, and it uh, doesn't have to stay at the home. So when you buy it, it's yours. We really view this more as an appliance than like traditional rooftop solar. And in what we're seeing in the market and where we see this going is like with California, when they did the NEM3 rules, they stretched the payback periods out to 15 years, and rooftop solar sales dropped by 75% in 1 year. And so because people see rooftop solar as costly and complicated, um, so we see what we've been seeing is people will either buy our smallest kit to test it out, or they buy multiples of our largest kit to basically duplicate what a rooftop solar install would do and produce. So, and we see the underserved market of renters and condo owners. A lot of shaded roofs, people can't put solar on the roof, but we can put this in other places, fences, decks, wherever. In a lot, we're picking up installers who they needed an alternative to this. And what else? Again, we just see this. We see ourselves at the beginning of of a an explosion in this marketplace, because again, it's a fraction of the cost of rooftop. It installs in like an hour and a half, and it's just really easy to use. There's not a lot to it. So yeah, I think I don't want to just keep droning on and on, but we're definitely, the biggest takeaways is we're already compliant in all 50 states. It's easy to use, easy to install, and it really works. And we do see it as a really cost-effective alternative, especially with the rooftop credit going away for residential solar.
Yep.
So,
Ken,
yeah,
thank you. And Ken's going to stick around for Q&A. I just wanted to say one other thing contextually about this. There's this whole discussion going on about abundance and scarcity. I think one of the things that we need to really start to think about with solar energy is that solar energy is the epitome of abundance. The sun rains down on us every single day, far more power than the whole humankind can use. Matter of fact, there's a notion that, 0.3 of the landmass of the Earth covered with solar would basically generate enough power to serve all of humanity. Fossil fuels represent scarcity. It is basically controlled by a small number of people. It's doled out by a small number of people. They hold it in reserve. They manage the prices. They do all these kind of things. Scarcity mindset sets up a whole dynamic of control and oppression and all these other things. Abundance mindset frees people to have the freedom to do what they want to do and not be held captive. I think solar is the ultimate epitome of an abundance and a free way of doing energy. And I think that we should do everything we can to basically get as much solar deployed as fast as possible. And I think this is a piece of the puzzle. And so that's why we're so excited about it. So Chris, let me turn it over to you. I think who's going to introduce our next speaker? Oh, Stacy, sorry.
Thank you, Steve and Ken. So you can see plug-in solar is really exciting, and we're excited about bringing it to the Southeast. As the discussions have been going on the past few weeks, I have been introduced to a lot of people in the Southeast that have been working on plug-in solar. And one of those is Mark Leidling in South Carolina, and he'll tell about South Carolina's story. Let me introduce him first. Mark Leidling is a dedicated advocate for renewable energy and sustainable living. Based in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, he is a NABCEP associate and serves as a solar energy instructor at Greenville Technical College. Mark holds degrees from both the University of Michigan and Michigan State University. He serves on the board of the South Carolina Solar Council, where he contributes to advancing the state's clean energy initiatives. With over 15 years of experience running a successful home remodeling company, Mark brings a hands-on, practical perspective to solar design and installation. His passion for do-it-yourself innovation is reflected in his own 800-watt solar system with battery backup, which powers his living room and showcases the potential of small-scale renewable energy systems. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, thanks everybody. I have a short 12-slide presentation. I'm going to cover a few things about the balcony solar for those that aren't as familiar with it, and then what's going on in South Carolina. Let me see here. I got to share. All right, can you all see that?
Yep, it's coming in now.
Okay, and I got to start this up here. Just seems to run slow. Okay. So yeah, I first heard about balcony solar about a year ago, and I saw the stories about Germany, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And I kept reading all the articles about how hard it was going to be to get it started in the U.S. Um, Ken has, thank you. I'm familiar with your company, Craftstroom. They've made a huge influx into this business. The basic components for a balcony system are going to be your solar panels. Bifacial are preferred, so they pick up a little energy off the back. 110 volt microinverter versus what's normally on a home, which is a 240 microinverters, and a plug. That's the basic system. But you also, for those of you that are going to be involved in maybe offering these systems to homeowners, especially in neighborhoods that have been underserved, they are going to require some sort of a stand, either to hang it off a fence or a balcony, or what some folks are finding. A lot of people just like them in the yard, and it's just a basic little angle iron stand with ballast to hold it down in case of a windstorm. And then optional is a smart breaker, and that is a unit Ken's familiar with. Actually, Ken, I stole that idea from you because I think it's a great device. So here's a basic drawing of what it looks like. Here's this in this case might be a 400 watt panel. You can use 200 watt panels, 400 watt panels, anything in between. Microinverter, 110 volt microinverters are a little harder to find than 220s. So sourcing is a little bit of an issue. Craftstroom obviously has one, so that's a good source. This one, I actually found this on Walmart of all places, and it even has a little monitor here to tell you what kind of power it's passing on. And so the DC comes in from the panel into the microinverter, and that's converting it to the AC. And then we see our plug here that you plug into an outlet. A dedicated circuit is recommended to prevent overvoltage from appliances that may also be on that same circuit. And it's an issue called breaker masking. And I don't want to get too technical here, but this is one of the negatives you're going to hear from people about balcony solar. Breaker masking is referring to the fact that a breaker can't sense the extra power coming in. And if there's a heavy load on the circuit on the inside of the house, it could overheat the circuit, and the breaker won't know about it. So an electrician would need to install a dedicated circuit in a home. So that's a cost to think about. However, there's an optional smart breaker that's NEC approved, and this is Craftstrom's here, actually, right here. And this will monitor the line voltage and prevent an issue like this. So I think this is $125 is probably cheaper than getting an electrician in to do a dedicated circuit. Unless you're like me and you know how to do your own work. The microinverters, for those of you that aren't heavy into solar, require the UL 1741 label, and that's for rapid shutdown. That's meant to protect firefighters and first responders to a home in the case of a problem with, and also the lineman if there's an outage in a grid. And it requires that the power from the panels is shut down immediately. Microinverters, there are some out there that might not be UL 1741 approved, but if you're going to use them in a situation like this, it's required. But this is what prevents the power from the panels going back into the grid if there's a power outage. The microinverter itself has this protection built in, but this also means that there's no solar power when there's a power outage. So again, as part of telling customers what they can expect from their system, this is an important point. Options are batteries and power meters. Crafstrom has a really wonderful system for both of these options. They will increase the cost. Kind of depends on what the homeowner's interest is in backup power. Some of the systems I've seen have batteries, but the batteries are only meant to offset power usage during the evening, but they do not provide backup power because, again, it's for whatever reason, I didn't get into their design too much, but I think Craftstroms may offer backup power too during an outage. But another system I've looked at, it's only meant to offset power in the evenings when rates may be higher, especially if you're on a time of use utility charge system. So system sizes, 200 watt. Actually, this one can be installed anywhere. This is, I've seen this, it's a flexible panel, hangs off a balcony, plugs in. It's so low wattage, it's considered base load. And even if a little bit of it did manage to trickle back out to the grid, it wouldn't affect anybody. But more commonly, we're going to see 400, 800, 1200 watt systems. And the reason I kept this at 1200 is you'll see in a minute. But really anything larger is going to require an electrician and an interconnection agreement because you're going to go into the panels, and anything larger than this, the utilities are going to want to know what's in the home. So here's just a list of some of the things on an 800 watt system. Fortunately, in South Carolina, we still have our state 25% South Carolina state tax credit for solar. There's a governor's election going on here. So we'll see how that all pans out in the long run, but at least for the time being, that is still in place. So we're very fortunate to have that in South Carolina. The Utah legislation, Ken mentioned, that was passed by House Rep Raymond Ward with 100% bipartisan support in a red state. It allows for 110 volt plug-in systems up to 1200 watts, must be UL certified. There's a side issue with UL certification I'll bring up in a minute, but it exempts these systems from interconnection agreements. They're not subject to net metering, which means that if you sell power back, if you send power back, the utility doesn't have to compensate you. Utility cannot require approval or apply any fee if you hook this in, and the utility is exempt from any liability. This is important, especially in South Carolina, because Duke Energy, if you go with solar here, they will put you on a time of use billing plan, and your rates will go up, and it will cost you more than anything you save with the balcony solar. So this piece of legislation is actually really critical for a lot of areas because a lot of the utilities are doing this. They're moving people to time of use, and under the guise of getting people to do their laundry at midnight. And what they're really doing is raising rates, but it sounds nice. There is some concern about UL certification. All the individual components are UL certified, but there was some debate on does the whole system need its own UL certification? And UL is actually looking at this right now. We're expecting guidance by the end of October, or I'm sorry, by the end of September, so beginning of October. I think Ken mentioned, the guess is, the feeling is that UL will approve this with individual component UL labels, but having this guidance from UL will help, I think, calm any fears from people about the safety of these systems. Turning to South Carolina, Mike Burns is our House rep for my district here in Travelers Rest in Greenville. And I sent him a copy of the Utah legislation, and he said, "This looks great. I want to send this in January to get a bill started." He said, "Send me back information on this in October, and I'll get it in January." I do know Mike is a solar advocate. He tried to introduce legislation for HOAs, solar access law for HOAs. Unfortunately, it was killed in committee, but I'm hoping that we do better here on this. And in fact, Raymond Ward from Utah has said, "I'll be happy to talk to any representative that wants my notes on how I got that passed here in Utah." So for the other states that are on this call, if you have people on your legislature that are interested or you think might be interested in this, they're going to get backing from Raymond if they need it. Understand Tennessee and North Carolina are also considering, and I know there's some other states out there too that are working in this, but maybe they aren't talking about it just yet. So as far as this legislation, this whole process goes, I think if we get more House and Senate members in South Carolina to be able to back Mike Burns, that's going to be all to the better. I think it's a great product for disadvantaged homeowners, for organizations such as yourself that might do fundraising to provide systems like this for homeowners. I figure, give you an idea on the economics, an 800-watt system is going to generate approximately 900 kilowatt hours a year, which is around 1 month's electric utility bill. The dollar amount is going to vary depending on the carrier. Here right now, Duke, South Carolina is about 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So we're coming up with about 120 some dollars a year. So it's not big, but these are 30-year systems. And even in a worst case scenario, say they take the tax credit and they give them if they get it for nothing, it's a win-win. But even somebody buying it, it might take 8-9 years to pay off, but they still have 20 plus years out of that system and they can take it with them. So it's definitely their advantage with or without tax credits. And that's about it.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Now we're ready for some Q&A. We'll do a few questions here that we have in the chat. So our experts, Ken and Mark, please help us with these questions. So Kent says, "I would like to ask about how this works if you have an existing PV system and it doesn't make economic sense to add it."
I wouldn't do it. I mean, if you're not going to make, if it's not going to help save you money, I mean, why would you bother? Kent, you're muted.
What I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is I have a 6.8 system. I needed to add a couple panels, 2 to 4 panels, just to help me so I could go, net zero on my usage, the power to plug in my EV. I just was getting quotes to add panels, but it was going to cost like $10,000 because they have to rewire the whole. When I have Enphase microinverters, they'd have to rewire the whole thing, and it would just never pay off because I only need about $20 worth of power a month, to break even. And so anyway, I was just curious if this solution can be used when you have an existing PV system that has net metering and the whole deal?
I think
Yes.
that's a better question for
Okay.
Ken. Yeah, because you're
Yeah,
doing bigger systems. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have a problem. I mean, we do this in California all the time because they still have NEM1 and 2, and so you can add a system to your current system because our system's always going to draw power first from us, and then it would hit your panels and the utilities. But in your case, it won't hit the utility because you're going to supply all your power. But yeah, it's very easy to add our system to existing systems, and
Yeah,
we do that all the time.
and Kent,
All right.
I've got I've got solar on my house, and I've been looking at adding, because we've got two EVs, and I've got, kids that use a lot of juice, and so I was net zero before I started driving the EVs. But then, I'm
Me
still
too.
I have no problem with that, but I'm trying to catch up with getting rid of fossil fuels all around. I think you should just look at these things as efficiency gains that lower your overall usage so that the existing panels you have will actually cover everything you've got. So I don't foresee any problems. I've got Tesla Powerwalls, and I'm on time of use and doing all the different things. And I think this is just going to make it easier for my existing system to hit the net zero targets that I want.
Thank you.
All right. Next question. How do you set the bias on the panel so that you can produce the solar? I have a power wall that sets the bias, so when the grid goes out, I still have power.
Um, Ken, I think that's probably a better one for you because your battery system. Because you got to understand us, the little systems I'm talking about. When the power they can't generate power if they don't sense power of coming from the grid.
Correct.
So when the power's out, the power's out. So if you want to get around it, you need to use a more advanced system like Craftsman offers with integrated battery that can let the panels know, continue generating power, and send it to these circuits in my house, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's correct.
Our next question is, can the panels still be mounted on a roof, or are they too lightweight?
No, our panels can be mounted on a roof. They can be mounted. They are
Yeah.
very light though. They're only 10 pounds. Our panels come with stands and framed, and they weigh 10 pounds a piece.
Yeah, I think Ken, your company uses 200-watt panels, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing to consider. Are you going to use 400-watt panels or 200-watt panels? 400-watt panel is going to be about 4x7 in size versus a 200-watt panel, which is about 2x5. So
Ours
there's
are,
an
ours
easy.
are 3x4, but yeah, I mean, they're really similar.
Yeah.
So our panels are similar so two panels are similar to the size of a 400-watt panel. They just typically weigh a lot less.
A little easier to maneuver.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people want to know if they bring them in if there's a bad storm or hurricane, so that sort of thing. But it's, yeah. So
it's hard to get a 400-watt panel in an SUV. I'll tell you that.
Definitely.
All right. And next, Harold, you have your hand up?
Yeah, my question is probably a little different. If you're a homeowner and you have the homeowners association, have you had issues with, putting these up in, your backyard or on the deck or on a fence or something like that? And how have people gotten around like the HOA?
Yeah. So what state are you in? Sorry.
I'm actually in Ohio.
Yeah. So every state has laws that prohibits HOAs from prohibiting solar. So the easiest way to get around it is if it's not a permanent install. So if you have a flat roof and you want to put them on a roof, I tell people, just put sandbags on the stand legs, and then they can't say that it's permanent. It's when you affix it permanently to a structure, like a home, like not a fence, but like your home, then you may have to get permitting, and then the HOA could possibly say something. But if your front yard was the only place you could get solar, and I haven't checked out the laws in Ohio, but we've not had a problem with this at all, then if that's the only place that you could get solar, then you theoretically can place them in the front yard and they can't say anything about it. But
I can speak.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, I can speak from personal experience. My HOA here, I went to put panels on my roof, and the board used it as an excuse to make it illegal to have solar in our community. We didn't have it in our initial bylaws. I put one in, but I put them on a pergola next to my pool so nobody can see them. But the bylaws state if they're anywhere in your yard, whatever, ground mount, forget it, roof, forget it. And keep in mind, an HOA has in many cases, especially their architectural review committee, can disavow any project for aesthetics. So unfortunately, this is why solar access laws are important. So South Carolina, unfortunately, still does not prohibit HOAs from preventing you to install solar. But many other states do have solar access law. North Carolina has a solar access law. So they got to have a darn good reason to tell you can't have it on your house.
Yeah, Ohio has one. It's Senate Bill 61 in Ohio.
I think there's 16 states that still do not have a solar access law. Somewhere 16, 17 states.
How about Tennessee?
I have a list somewhere, but if you do a quick Google search and you can find out, just ask solar access by state and you'll get a list. I don't know about Tennessee offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, they have one as well.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, it says in Tennessee, HOAs cannot outright ban solar panel installation. And the other thing, guys, is, a lot of these laws are written for fixed, like what everyone knows is residential rooftop solar. Again, this stuff you can make a really good claim that it's temporary, because if it's not a fixed anything, it's no different than a chair outside or your barbecue or whatever.
Thanks.
Great, thank you all. Oh, Chris, do we need to move to the next, or do we have time for the last two questions?
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. Yeah, let's go ahead and do the last two questions. And if whoever has to drop off at the hour, feel free. But if you can stay on 5 extra minutes, then we'll wrap things up after the
Okay,
hour.
thank you.
Yeah, and Chris, it's Stacey, I just want to have a very short thing after the Q&A just to talk about next steps with SACE too about this issue. So,
Okay.
very quick.
So Kent has a question. Please say more about time of use billing. We like it because it saves us as EV drivers. Can we do balcony solar and keep our time of use?
Well, once you're on time of use billing plan, the utility is not going to take you off it. So my concern is for the homeowner that's just putting a balcony solar system in that moves you to time of use. I've modeled it. It costs you more money for a normal homeowner. Time of use will cost you more money if you put solar on your home, and makes you do that here. Now, people that are engaged with an EV, it can make a lot of sense. Your energy demands are very different. It makes sense for you to charge overnight, and so time of use could be great for you. But for the average homeowner, it is not a good deal. And so that's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, what we've seen, again, because our system doesn't push back into the grid, we have attorneys that said the electric company's jurisdiction stops at the meter. So they can't tell you anything past the meter. And because you're never pushing back into the grid, they're never going to investigate, a spike. Like we have people from Arizona that contact us because they were just pushing power back into the grid. they got cease and desist letters from the utility, and the utility can find out once you cross that barrier into their domain, they have the right to tell you what to do. But what our attorneys have looked into and what we know to be true is that their jurisdiction stops at the meter.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I would agree. I would agree with you on most. We're just in a weird spot here in the upstate South Carolina with Duke Energy.
Mhm.
They are called in
Okay.
to review any kind of solar install, and
Listen to me.
so
Yeah, Mike, I want to push back a little bit on time of use. I think you're right that if you go into it blindly and you're not prepared to sort of manage your use patterns, then you're going to get screwed by time of use because people may not understand how the delta is between the peak rate and the off-peak rate. But as we're looking at trying to get the utilities to be cleaner and more efficient, actually getting people to not be using as much power during peak times is actually has a huge benefit both to the utility and to the environment, because when the utilities are peaking, they're usually running their least efficient and sometimes their dirtiest units. And so getting us off of peak is a good thing. And so what needs to happen is the utility needs to properly incentivize and properly educate, not force people onto time of use. But I think we all as consumers need to understand how the grid works better and actually learn how to be not drying our clothes at 5 o'clock on an August afternoon, because that's the least efficient time to do it. And it actually produces the most pollution and actually stresses the utility grid the most. Obviously, like you said, EVs times 10, and so I
yeah.
think there is a lot of discussion to have, but I just don't want people to walk away from this call feeling that time of use is a bad thing. It's not. It just needs to be properly done.
Could you repeat the amount of energy expected from an 800-watt system? I'm here in Florida, and when I Google it, it says about 440 kilowatt hours, 4,400 kilowatt hours rather.
for an 800-watt system in Florida.
That's what it said when I Googled it. Maybe I'll have to do the
800, no,
calculation.
I'm sorry. I modeled this using open solar on my home here, and these are not optimally positioned panels. And even if you do the math, 800 watts times 5.5 hours a day, that's for North Carolina or South Carolina, 5.5 hours a day times 365 gets you to your 900, I'm sorry, 9,900 kilowatt hours.
Oh, okay.
So
But maybe that's a
it's just, it's just,
underestimate.
well, real world, it might be a little, it depends, there's a lot of factors. It's always an estimate no matter what you do, because we don't know when it's going to rain or get cloudy.
All right. And thank you, Claude. And Kent, did you have another question?
Yeah, actually, it's the same question. My question was how to use the time of use system to my advantage if I were to do balcony solar. I've already got the time of use system, and unlike you in South Carolina, I can get off the time of use system anytime I want here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I don't have that limitation, but the balcony solar is extremely interesting, and we already do very well with the time of use system. I guess it was like, what's the math of putting in the balcony solar? Would that reduce the savings or eliminate the savings, or is there a way to use balcony solar and time of use together?
Well, Kent, let me answer that because I'm on KUB
Right,
too,
right,
and I'm
yeah.
doing the same thing. Now my system's a little more sophisticated because I got the Tesla Powerwall, so I make my house completely disappear
Right.
during the peak period. But the way I would see it happening is that particularly so time of use in Knoxville, we have two seasonal charges. We have a winter
Right.
pattern, which basically goes from like 5 in the morning to 11 in the
Right.
morning. And then in the afternoon in the summer pattern, it goes from 2 in the afternoon until 8. And so Where this system would help you is, and being that it is movable, you can orientate your panels during the different times where you're catching the morning sun, which is then helping you offset some of your higher peak load during the winter peak. Now the sun comes up, 9 in the morning, so you're only going to get a couple of hours
Right.
there.
Right.
But in the summer, it really would be great if you orientated towards the west and you maxed out the sun as it's setting, because you would catch that period from 2 until like 7 where you would be getting solar output that then would be offsetting your use. So I think these are ideal for being able to do that, because you can move them around to the proper orientation based on what your peak period is and what time period you're in. So I think that's what I'm going to explore with it, because I think it's going to make a lot of sense. And as far as it's going to do, any power that you're using during those peak times, this is just in essence going to offset it.
Right.
Or, to a point. I mean, it depends on how much you're using, but you're going to get this, efficiency gain during the peak periods, which means that you don't have to dial everything back in your house. You're going to be able to continue to do it.
Right. Great. Thank you. That's terrific.
All right, and we have one more question here from Suzanne. Do you have to have the inverter? Can you use DC directly for an EV?
Well, if you get
with our
DC
system.
charging is very high wattage or voltage. Yeah, I suppose you could, but it'd be a pretty big system, be big enough to do DC charging to an EV.
Yeah, with our system, you need our product.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all the questions. I'll hand it back over to Stephen.
Yeah, so just real quick, closing out this section. SACE is extremely interested in getting some real ground experience with this. One of the things that we are discussing is that we may be able to offer to members a discount on purchasing these systems. We can't, we're in discussion with the folks at Craftstrom about this, and we think that we can't obviously undercut the suggested retail price writ large in advertising. But I think with people who are dedicated to be members of SACE and working with us on this technology, we may be able to give you a discount. So all I'd ask is that if you're really seriously thinking about this, reach out to us and talk to us a little bit about it, and we may be able to work you in, just like we're working in some of our staff, into looking at this and maybe able to get you a system configured at a little bit more of a discount rate even than what is being offered. And then remember this, that at least through the end of the year, if you got the federal tax incentives, so now is a time, and then if you've got state incentives, you can even layer them on top of that. So now is an opportune time. And, there's a saying that, that the sun, literally will make you high when you basically get out there and start doing this, because you really feel like you're working with the natural world to solve problems. And so I encourage everybody to experiment if you haven't already. So I'll let you go there.
Thank you, Steve. Somebody asked about contact information. So if our speakers, Mark and Ken, can put their contact in the chat if they're willing, please do so.
Sure.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up our discussion on plug-in solar. Thank you, Mark, and thank you to Ken. Ken, is that right? At Craftstrom? I'm sorry. Yeah, Ken. Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, it's Ken.
Yeah. So thanks for coming and presenting, and thank you everyone for the questions. Yeah, please let us know if anyone on this call is interested in experimenting with doing plug-in solar. Please contact us. Let us know. I see a few people in the chat. That's great. So our next section we're going to do, and I recognize we're past the hour, so thanks for sticking with us. We have just a few more minutes where we're going to talk about the this is something we do on every monthly Clean Energy Generation member call, where we talk about what are some of the most timely, relevant, and important actions that we can take in order to progress clean energy and protect the climate, considering the particular month we're in right now. So I have 3 actions I'm going to drop into the chat here. So first of all is find your local Sunday event. A lot of them are happening. There's dozens of them around the Southeast. A lot of them are happening on Sunday the 21st, but there are some happening on other days also. So find your local event and invite a friend to go with you if you have one local. The second thing I want to plug is if you have not already, please submit a public comment to the Environmental Protection Agency about their proposal to rescind the endangerment finding. This may or may not have been something you've heard about, but in case not, I'll just say briefly, this is the political leadership at EPA currently has proposed removing a scientific finding that greenhouse gas emissions cause dangerous air pollution. That, in fact, they are not air pollution that's dangerous to people and the environment. And so by removing that scientific finding, it undercuts their ability to limit greenhouse gas pollution. So it's a play at getting rid of and barring the federal government from regulating greenhouse gas pollution at all. So, okay.
Chris,
yes.
I just wanted to add that apparently the DOE has removed the Steve Koonin et al. Report from their website, but are maintaining the position cited in it despite the report by Dressler et al. From I guess it's Texas Tech. I'll put the reference for the Texas Tech rebuttal in the chat.
Okay, thank you. The EPA is taking public comments on their proposal until next week, or week after, I guess, until September 22nd is the deadline. I put in the chat of the Zoom here a link where you can just submit a comment really quick. You are encouraged to customize it and make it personal if you like, or if not, you can just click it and it only takes seconds. Please share that with a friend also if you've already submitted a comment. And then the third thing I have is, unfortunately, the federal government is under attack. Its abilities in a lot of ways to protect people, to basically just let us protect ourselves from corporate polluters. And so one of those ways is getting rid of the endangerment finding and the government's ability to regulate greenhouse gases. But of course, as you're aware, there are very active efforts to defund key federal agencies that do critical work on climate and public health and all sorts of other things, and also lay off vast numbers of staff people who do critically important work. Congress is coming up on the annual deadline to fund the government, September 30th, the end of the fiscal year. And so Congress is now working on getting a budget passed. And we want to make sure that key agencies like EPA and NOAA and DOE, the National Weather Service, et cetera, have the funds they need and the staff they need to do their jobs adequately. So we're going to join with people from across the country, and we're going to have a national call-in day to Congress next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, September 16th and 17th, to urge our members of Congress to protect the funding for these key agencies that protect people and communities from climate and weather disasters. So look for another email probably from me or from SACE with more details on that. But right now, just make a note that we're going to do a national call-in day, September 16 and 17. That's Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And so that's all we have. And our last order of business is we'll do a group picture. And so if you want to be in the group picture, you can turn your camera on. And if you don't want to be in the group picture, you can turn your camera off or put your thumb over it or something like that. And on 3, we can say clean energy. All right. 1, 2, 3, clean energy. All right, got it. Thank you all. Hope you have a good month. And please let us know if you have any questions or comments. And thank you again to Mark and Ken for coming and presenting today.
Yeah, thanks much, everybody. This was great.
All right.